Well, welcome to our podcast.
Oh, new host today.
Right?
Oh, hey, Patty's got her hosting voice on. Did you just hear it?
I do.
Hey, this is Patty.
Hey, it's Patty. First of all, which of these things is not like the other?
Hey, it's me, Patty. We're going to talk about moms today.
I think Jeff wants to host.
No, I don't. That's why. Okay, I'll be quiet. Yeah, go ahead.
So just in case you were wondering, when we met about the May podcast schedule, someone,
That was a
I'm
long
not
time.
going to say that it was a long time.
That was a long time ago.
It was like 3 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dog years. Dog weeks. It was a long time ago.
Anyways,
I don't remember that.
as
Cannot confirm or
we
deny that
as we
actually happened.
decided to interview mothers for this particular day following Mother's Day,
That's right.
someone said, "Hey, that'd be great. I want to host it. I want to interview."
I don't know that I said I want to.
Oh yes, I wrote it
I
down.
think you said, "Do you want to?" And then I said, "No, man, I guess I could. I mean, I wouldn't do as good as you or Cameron, but I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like that? Is
Hey
that
Jeff,
not how it went?
you remember the time that you
Hey,
volunteered?
You remember the time that you hosted the podcast and it was terrible? Okay.
Stop.
It was awesome.
Moving on.
Moving on.
To moms,
Yes.
mamas.
Mother's Day. We had a great Mother's Day yesterday.
Mother's Day was.
Did you all have a good Mother's Day yesterday?
Yes, had a wonderful one Mother's Day.
Good.
I did too.
Are
I
you
took a nap.
Should we introduce our guests since
We
she's already
probably
talking?
should
Yeah.
because this is
The
not
new
me,
face. I know,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, we have Melissa Ross with us today. She actually said yes and followed up. She's here.
I know.
I'm here. I'm
I am
present.
too. I'm here too. I'm in my normal chair. I'm
probably
exactly
gonna get you
where
the whole
I'm
time.
supposed to be.
I love that you can take a joke.
Oh my Lord, absolutely,
You couldn't be a preacher
100%.
without being able to take some jokes somewhere along the way.
right.
absolutely.
So Melissa is obviously a mama. She's a daughter. She's a wife. She wears many, many hats.
She's the wife of Bill Ross.
That's
yeah,
right.
many hats.
Many hats.
Well, yeah.
So-
you can just say that. You can say, "Here's the wife of Bill Ross," and just leave it there.
Crickets.
Yeah, that would be enough. We could talk
Yeah.
about that for an
That's
hour.
more.
So what would you title your role at Anchor Counseling Ministry?
Office manager. That's the
Office
easiest.
manager.
That's the easiest way to put it. But
Okay.
it has a lot going on.
Or in Disney terms, the people mover.
The people mover. That would be a very. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
the people setter. Sometimes it's the pick up the pieces as they leave. It can be a lot of different things.
The child entertainer.
The child entertainer.
all the things.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
the timekeeper.
That doesn't work well in our world, but yeah, that would be ideal. We had a discussion about that this week, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
She's the phone call reminder.
All those things.
Yeah.
Bill's
Yes.
in my office, and Bill starts getting phone calls. Bill says, "Hey, I got 10 minutes. Can I run over?" "Yeah, come on over." 20 minutes later, the phone's ringing. Yeah, the
that's
phone's
right.
ringing.
The
yeah.
phone's ringing. Yeah, someone's
Bill's
here,
like,
Bill.
"Oh, that's Melissa. That'll be okay."
It'll be okay. And then it rings again.
"Oh, that's Melissa. Oh, it'll be okay." Yeah.
Because
So-
he enjoys talking to you.
Well, we love
He
it.
does.
No, we don't get enough time to. We debrief and we get to share with each other, so we just don't have enough time to do that. But
that's right. And it's needed.
yeah, absolutely.
So if you make a physical appearance, things get really, really scary
Yes.
for Bill.
Yes. That's very, yes.
Nice.
So, and I try to avoid that. So usually I have enough people on this side to be able to get him back over because I'll just start making my calls. Have you seen Bill?
Oh yeah, you
And-
mean like if Bill's in my office and Melissa shows up?
Yes.
That's
yes.
not good.
The knock on the door where Bill hides
Yeah,
behind
no,
your chair.
yeah,
Where's Bill's
that's
hide?
Yeah.
Anyways.
you look up and I see Melissa and Bill's like, "Jeff, I told you I have to go." Oh, okay, Bill.
Yeah.
Something like
We
that.
know the truth, though.
Yeah, throw
know
me a
the
chase. There you go.
We know the truth. So.
Well, we're so grateful for you and Bill and the
are.
ministry that you provide for not only our church, but our community and beyond.
Well, it is definitely a calling, and if we did not have God's blessing on it, it would not be happening.
You're right. And May is National Mental Health Awareness Month, as Cameron mentioned last week's podcast. So I love that we're having you on here. You offer a unique perspective on motherhood, and we're looking forward to hearing all that you have to say, Melissa.
Well, thank you.
And we're just so grateful that you could make time to be here with us today. Before we get into talking with Melissa, I want to just, are you making fun of me?
No, I'm over here. Like I'm still here. Ooh,
I feel the
I should have
judgment.
known.
Jeff.
Yeah, whatever. We'll get left out. You watch.
Oh, what
you
is that? A
once
chicken feather on the floor?
You watch once it gets started, it's going to be like everybody's back's going to be toward that way. The camera shot will be over there. I'll just be over here. What's up?
Snoring.
Hanging out.
Something like that. Anywho, Mother's Day. It's all about us.
It's all about you guys, not about me.
So yes, I had a great day yesterday. Joey asked, "Hey, I want to take you out somewhere special to eat for Mother's Day, and where would you like to go?" Sir Pizza.
Nice. Sir
Just so you know,
listen, Sir Pizza's
I'm not surprised.
Sir Pizza's amazing.
it is a nostalgic treat for us. We used to go there when we were dating because we had $0, or as my son would say, $1.50.
No, $150, man.
And so
Wish I'd had $1.50.
It's a nice treat. So we drive to Murfreesboro, and my parents meet us there. So I got mama time. I got family time. So it was just great, uninterrupted, and yummy pizza.
Square pizza. The pizzas they cut them in squares.
Squares.
There's just something about it.
You could eat like 1,000 squares of pizza.
I might have.
I mean, I can't. I don't know if you can. I shouldn't have said that. Patty, you can eat. That's really nice. Wow.
Whoa.
Stop with that, Joey. Wait, what's Joey? I was just kidding.
I take it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a great
Sir
day.
Pizza is amazing. That's a great.
Yes.
Well, yeah, we so Friday was our wedding anniversary, 38 years, and we had planned to go out to eat somewhere in Nashville, and we ended up having Julie ended up having Graham holiday, and of course had the funeral and all that. She was just like, let's just stay home. Well, okay, because we'd never been huge anniversary because there's always something going on with the family or whatever, and it's like, let's just. I mean, if you go downtown Nashville, you're going to spend a lot of money. I don't care where you go. It's just what it is right now. I'm like, I just soon stay home and eat chicken cordon bleu and rice and hang out. That's what we did, Which Wynn loved it. She loved it, and then Sunday the kids all came over, and we. I was going to grill, but then Julie had already ordered some sandwich trays from Publix. Make it easy.
It is. That's the way to do it.
So they all came over and hung out. It's just family time,
Love
Came
that.
out and they swam and the kids swam and we just kind of watched them and it was great.
Absolutely. Well, you had a great service yesterday. It was just sweet.
Yeah, it was.
I was telling the family last night, I just felt everything was anointed yesterday. It was just very, very sweet. And what's really cool is obviously I'm pretty much serving in multiple services, so I may not always recognize some of the ladies, but just coming and going, people would look at me and say, "Happy Mother's Day." So there's that commonality that just ties us all in together, right?
That's right.
And it's just pretty. It's just a sweet thing, right?
It's always a sweet thing to be recognized as a mother.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's like Cameron mentioned, it's hard because for some moms it's difficult, because they may have lost a child, may have lost a child before a child was born. Maybe is not a mother but wants to be a mom.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dynamic there that can be difficult. Or maybe you've lost your mother, and then that makes it difficult. But I think it's always appropriate and great that we want to recognize, those things because it's just not always an easy day for a lot of folks.
Absolutely. I know my mom lost her mom a couple of years ago, and I think we buried her on a Saturday. The next day was Mother's Day.
Wow.
Oh.
And she came to church, and I'm like, "Mom, you could have stayed home and just took a day."
Sure.
And she said, "I thought about it. But then I thought, this is exactly where she'd want me to be.
That's right.
Whether I'm crying, whether I'm happy, whatever, this is where my mom raised me to be."
Right.
And so I thought, what a legacy, what a testimony.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you said yesterday in the sermon message, generations of hope.
Yeah.
Generations of pouring into and setting the tone for your life, the expectation for your life. And so, it just carries through if we listen and if we're obedient to our parents, right?
Oh,
So it's
the influence of mothers, I don't think we can ever underestimate, because I think about my great-grandmother and all the folks that were in my life, and it's just, I may have been small when they passed away, but still that influence they had, the stories that's been told about their lives and their faithfulness to God through thick and thin, you go, "Oh man, I've got it going.
That's right.
I've got something to fall back on. I've got a foundation."
Yeah. And it always and the legacy to me it always seems to come through the moms and not the dads. I think as dads we establish a legacy, but I think moms just the I don't know, like it's because I think about Julie and the way that our kids look at us. Like they know, like Julie's going to check them. Julie's going to, you mean you're going to be at church Sunday? You know, you're going to do this, you're going to do like that's just mom. Yeah. You know, I'm going to be like, man, look, I poured my life into you. I told you what was right and wrong. And you know what? You got to make choices because you're an adult and I want you to make the right choices. Julie's like, Saturday night, you going to be at church tomorrow? You know, because that's just what moms do.
That's right.
And I think that's what you remember. You know, that's what you think about. And I think that's what they'll think about. Like I think about my mom and her mom and, you know, that legacy that goes down.
I was thinking about this as well yesterday. You know, I grew up on a farm, so many critters and animals, and I think you did as well.
Yes.
And so if you just look out, you watch a mama cow and a baby calf, it's just natural. Motherhood is natural.
Oh, yeah.
As you watch the little one cling to mama and whine when mama is away, and maybe even stay put when mama is off doing something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very, very natural, and that's God's design for motherhood.
Well, it's amazing how it falls through the whole entire animal. All animals seem to have that ability to know who mama is and what to do. And you know, you find deers like a baby a fawn laying next to a fence because mama has left it at someone's fence, and she's gone off to get something done, and she comes back because that baby knows to stay there. That's
exactly
amazing.
Yeah, how do they know to do that?
Yeah, how do they know to do that? You know, what was said, what was those words that were said in that conversation? I'm leaving, you're going to stay here, and I'm going to go.
It's true. But it's true, though. I mean, it's exactly how it is in the animal kingdom. You know, I mean, so how can you say God doesn't exist?
That was my next thing. When the animals, that's right. Insects. I mean, it goes. It's just it's phenomenal.
It is. So, anyways, I say that to say yesterday, and yesterday we're obviously recording this on a Monday afternoon, and it'll be aired on Wednesday. So, if we say yesterday, that's why. And so, you preached on Generations of Hope, which I'll give a backstory that's kind of funny. As communications director, I like everything so and planned out. We're usually at least 2 days ahead on communications and such, all the things that go with that. And I get back from an Oklahoma trip last Thursday.
Yeah.
And my counterpart says, "Oh, hey, by the way, the message has changed for Sunday." I'm like, "No, it's not." No, it's not.
No, it's not. We're in 1 Corinthians.
There's no room for the Spirit to move.
What are we doing? Stick to your plan.
And so, of course, I'm like,
no.
What is it? And obviously, I'm kidding.
I know, absolutely.
I totally understand and would expect you to do that. If the Lord leads you away from a sermon series, there's a reason. He has something to say, and we need to be obedient to that. And your communications just needs to follow suit.
Exactly.
And we did.
So
we punted, and we got Mother's Day verbiage out for Generations of Hope, and it was absolutely perfect. Because that's the way the Lord designed it to be, right?
Yes.
So I did want to ask, what led you to these two particular ladies in the Bible to speak on?
Yeah, no, you know, well, I think just the fact of, you know, a lot of people, and a lot of pastors do this, and it's fine, is they'll just stay where they are and just keep preaching where they are, and, you know, that's good. But I've just always been one to, like, you get one day a year that you can lift up your moms. You got one day a year that you can encourage dads. You got, you know, it's not like you just don't have a lot of time to focus in on that. And those two roles are so important. Why wouldn't you do that? And so I think it's important to do that. And I thought, well, I'll just stay in 1 Corinthians this time. And it's funny. The Lord's like, yeah, okay, we'll see how that's going to work for you. When your normal pattern is chapter 5 is on sexual morality. Okay, is that going to be a great Mother's Day sermon? You know, is that going to be a great encouragement for moms? You know, so anyway, so I just thought, you know, there's just a day we got to lift up and encourage our moms. I think it's so important. And you know, on thinking of Eve and Sarah, for me, Eve has just always been a very interesting character. Because the only thing that she's known for is what she did wrong. And I mean, we're not taking away that she obviously made a huge mistake, right? She made a choice that affected all of us. Yeah. But that wasn't the end of her story. And that wasn't the end of her life. And I just don't, I just haven't, I did some research on her several years ago and just really started digging into that and kind of realizing, reading some things on that and looking at that and thinking, man, like there's a ton of hope in here. How could a person that made a decision that affected all of humanity for all of mankind can find hope again? And she was able to find hope again. And the same God that she turned her back on.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, our, one of the things really coming out of her story is I wanted our moms to know it's not, you may have made a mistake in your life and you may have made mistakes in your life, but that's not the end of your story. Mm-hmm. There's always hope. And I think that's the message of Jesus is there's always hope in Christ. Mm-hmm. And so, it's never too late to turn back to the Father. And I think when you look at Eve's, it's just very interesting to me that at the beginning of chapter 4 and the end of chapter 4, you've got two very different postures when it comes to Eve and God. In the beginning of chapter 4, you still had that very defiant, I did this, and the Lord, and this impersonal God helped me.
The +1 theory.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. And but then you see the pain that she went through. Like, think about that. Like, even as a mom, she saw her son get killed by her other son. Mm-hmm. She saw just a lineage of murder and hate throughout her life. But then something in that process changed. Something in that part of her life changed. And when you get to the end of chapter 4, you've got this very beautiful picture to me where the first word she says is God. The first word she said in the beginning of 4 was I. Now she says God. Mm-hmm. What changed? Something changed in her life. There was a hope that came to her. And I read this statement somewhere years ago. It said it wasn't in her pain that she found God. It was in the goodness of God that she found hope. Because God gave her another child. Yeah. And so it was in the goodness of God that she found her hope in him. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was a great statement and a great way to think about, it was really through her being a mom that God restored her faith and her hope back in him. Yeah. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it says in verse 26, and people began to call on the name of Yahweh. They hadn't been for all of those years, because you think about this, when they were banished from the garden, it was up to Adam and Eve to set the pace on would they pursue God or not. There wasn't nobody else. Like, there wasn't anybody else. Like, we don't think about that.
Yeah.
Like, they got kicked out of the garden. They're banished. It's just those two. Mm-hmm. So they decide, okay, what are we going to do with what just happened? Like, can you imagine those conversations? Like, what are we going to do? What does it mean for us? And we'll just do life, and God's not really a part of it. So they acknowledged God, but he really wasn't a part of their life. And they passed that down. So there were generations that felt the same way about God. Why? Because they set the pace. But then as you see her life change and her posture changes and her perspective of God changes, then all of a sudden you start seeing, now people are seeking God again. And I just think it's just a very cool picture of finding some redemption for a woman who obviously made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
And their mom is out there that I'm sure they felt like they've made mistakes in their marriage. They've made mistakes in their parenting. They've made mistakes in their careers. They've made, a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's not the end of the story. Mm-hmm. And I think if we focus and I've kind of zeroed in on this idea of for moms, quit worried about being fixed and realize that you've been forgiven. Yeah. Like, that's the key. Mm-hmm. And as much as men really don't struggle with this, I think you guys have got the world telling you everything that's wrong with you, right? Every time you look at a television set or you look at a catalog that comes in the mail or whatever, right? It's you look at it and go, that's not me on that cover. That's not, I don't look like that. But you just don't see normal people. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, I see these things that come through the mail because I get the mail at our house and I look at it and I say, man, it's just amazing to me how a woman must feel when the world says this is what you're supposed to look like. right? And I think about teenage girls and growing up and looking at all that and seeing all that and social media and all that's out there, and you go, I'm not even close to that.
Yeah.
So what does that say about me?
Well, Jeff, the other aspect of that too is that when you have children, all of a sudden you're entering the competition level with them in some aspect. Also, are they at the best school?
Right.
Are they wearing the right clothes?
Absolutely.
Are they
Yeah.
in the sports? Am I going to be able to get them to dance? And am I going to be able to get
Yeah.
them over to this and the mentoring and it just goes on and on. So not only are you dealing with what the world's telling you as a person are supposed to do, you're also in this world of making sure that the child is, doing what we're supposed to do. I think about the potter and the clay. God is still in control of that child, but
Yep.
boy, we try to come in and start molding and doing our own control
Yeah, absolutely.
in that.
No, I think that's very real. I'm watching Madison kind of navigate that with Braylon. And, I've made the comment in the last 3 months, you can't do everything. You're going to find that you want her to do everything, but she can't physically do everything. Well, we're going to try. Okay. I mean,
It's challenging though.
it's very exhausting because, there are just you just got to make the choices. You got to make decisions and you can't, and they're doing well with that, but I'm watching them kind of navigate that and walk through that road. We were never ones who felt like our kids had to do everything. Like when it came to our kids playing baseball, we were like, yeah, you're not playing baseball. You're not going to like it. I hated it. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. I don't love it, because I'm not good at it. So because of that, I'm like, yeah, you guys probably won't like it. And they tried it a little bit, didn't like it. And so they didn't have to be doing something all the time. And I think that's just hard for parents right now. Like you were saying, Melissa, because you feel the pressure. Everybody else is. Everybody else's kid is. And so as a mom, I've got to, and I don't see how, as I'm watching Madison navigate this and others, how does a mom who works
That's right.
full time then turn around and, be that mom who has their kids at everything? I mean, it's impossible.
As we've talked about on the podcast many times, it all comes back to balance and pursuing God.
Absolutely.
Pursuing Him. You gave the example of Eve. This is the impact of what a mother looks like when she is pursuing God. Problems can be fixed with the Lord's help. There is triumph over failure. There is hope. There is restoration of what is lost if we're pursuing the Lord. There is guidance and direction for those things when we're actively asking the Lord, are we pushing our kids to so many activities that we're not even in the Word together as a family?
Absolutely.
I've been there, so I'm preaching at myself too.
Yeah.
To where we as a family had to go, hold up.
Liz.
We're eating all of our meals on the road.
Right.
And we homeschool.
Right.
There's a problem here.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So,
You're right.
Yeah. Again, I loved your statement about the impact of a mama. So we got to pursue the Lord.
Well, it goes back to that being the number one. I mean, it has to be, and it has to be a family goal. It can't just be. You hope that it's a family goal.
Yeah. Well, sure. and with Eve, I think for me, realizing that I'm not, as long as I'm here on this earth, I'm not going to be fixed. I'm not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
I think this idea of Eve couldn't fix the result of what she did.
No. And I love the emphasis you put on that.
Yeah,
and you took the fix to forgiveness. And I thought that, we have to forgive ourselves. We have to move into Christ's forgiveness and make all that part of it, because there's nothing worse than not forgiving yourself for something, because that's going to be pushed into your child's life also.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So just as the good can be there, the bad can be there.
Yeah, and that can have generational impact. Just
Tremendous.
as much
That's
as realizing your forgiveness and living in the grace of Christ can have generational impact.
Yeah.
The lack of grace and mercy.
That's exactly right. It can go either way.
Go either way.
Yep.
So I don't know if you noticed this yesterday, but with our worship set and the 10 o'clock, the Lord did it again, not coincidentally, but we actually sang before you got up to preach in Christ alone. And then you get up and preach about Eve, and you talk about the heart shift and the mindset toward, I can't do this. None of this is me.
Yep.
So it is Christ alone.
Yeah,
it is
that's absolutely
God
right.
alone.
Yep.
in whom we find our hope. And
Eve didn't have a lot of friends coming to her and giving her support.
No.
It was,
Right.
I mean, you're talking.
She had Adam. That
She
was
had
it.
Adam. That's a scary thought.
Yeah, well, that's all you got.
It's like, that's a whole different. That's
A whole different podcast, isn't it?
Yes, that's a whole different podcast.
yeah.
That's funny.
And then you talked about Sarah,
Yeah.
Mother of Nations.
Yep. I just think I love her story. I loved that the scripture included this two very different views of her laughter, and I was hoping it would work out that way, because I was always familiar with the Genesis 18 view of her laughing and then this conversation going back and forth between her and the Lord, and then her coming back in 21 when she had the child, and her laughter, her joy had been restored. Her laughter had been restored, and it was. But I just think it's great. Like, I mean, where in the world can you read where the Lord? Now, this is the theological terms, we call this a theophany, which is kind of hard to understand sometimes. But it actually is a physical manifestation of Jesus before he was born, which is like, how does that work? But it's just God coming down and taking the form of a human so that he can communicate with us. And he did that throughout the Old Testament. The ultimate theophany was obviously Jesus coming through Mary and him becoming one of us. But so this was actually the Lord. This wasn't just an angel talking to Abraham. And so, the Lord was the one who said, why is your wife laughing? And, then all of a sudden she gets into the conversation. She goes, I didn't laugh. She goes he's like, no, you did.
You can visualize her inside that tent.
Oh my goodness.
With the Lord speaking to Abraham outside, and her, right.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah. And that
Wrong
was,
girl.
Yes. And that is exactly, it was a scorn. And because really, when you look at that definition, it's really neat in the Hebrew language. It talks about scorn and disbelief. Just this smirk, like, like that's going to happen here. Not happening, And she had all of these, excuses as to why this wasn't going to happen. And you just start looking at those things and you think, okay, all of these things she's saying is impossible.
Yeah.
And it was impossible for her.
That's right.
She had been barren for 90 years. I mean, for 90 years, she hadn't been able to have a child. And she had already passed that season of her life where, her and her husband were I don't even know how to say that, but you know what I'm saying? Like that season of their life had passed, right? Yeah. So they were in their older years, senior years, and she was like, because she even says, Melissa and I were talking about this earlier. She's like, it says in the scripture, will I have delight again?
Yeah.
And she was referencing this, this husband and wife experience, and she was like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, I don't think that's happening, and it's been so many years. And so she was internalizing what was being asked of her. But she was
sort of being real about it. It wasn't, I mean, she was just being real, not scriptural, but real.
I think she was being real. And I think but I think there was also a part of her that was like that. And I don't know if she had grown bitter and, you can imagine her life, the scorn that she lived under all of her life of being a barren woman in that culture. Like, you failed because your role, one of your primary roles is to provide a male son for your family, because the family had to continue to propagate. And so for her not to be able to do that, she she failed as a woman. So you can imagine.
I can't imagine. I can, because I wasn't able to have a child.
Yeah.
Now, the same cultural expectations were not there, but it's still, when you said that, I was like, those things have come down over years, but just in different ways. Because if you're sitting with a group of women and everyone's talking about having babies, and you go, well, I can't have a baby. I mean, they don't know what to say. They really don't know what to do with that.
No.
And even in, you mentioned earlier that sometimes this is not a happy time for mothers. I can remember sitting and having to leave church services because of on Mother's Day, because it was such a heavy weight, because it wasn't recognized by whoever was in the pulpit.
Wow.
That everybody is not. So it does hurt. There is shame.
Even in our culture.
Even in our culture today.
Yeah.
And then you don't even get into the part of what goes through with the infertility part of things.
Wow.
That's just nothing but, nothing's private anymore. Nothing's private.
And that can be failure after failure after
failure.
right?
That's right.
Expensive failure after expensive failure.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
I've walked with couples through that, and okay, this is another $10,000.
That's right.
Well, it may not work. And so I can't imagine, like, you've got a female who's already dealing with the shame and the guilt of not being able to have a child, and then you're doing this, and this still doesn't work.
It still doesn't work, right?
So I just, I just can't imagine, and I think it's. But go ahead.
Then there's also that in that time frame there's usually miscarriages that take place.
Oh, wow.
And then there's also, if you go into the adoption like what we did, there was failed adoptions, and so there's a constant, and it becomes, what have I done?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really start leaning on the promises of God. I mean,
Wow.
that's exactly where you have to go, because there's no one else. There may be people has gone down that route with you or going through similar situations, but there's only one place to go and have hope for the future.
Let me ask you a question, because something you just said, it always sparks something in my mind when I hear that, because for you, failed pregnancies, failed adoptions, all of those types of things, you internalize that by saying, "What have I done?"
There was that. What have I done?
Because I think it's very common for people
is.
to think they've done something and now God is punishing you.
Exactly.
And because
Previous
of that,
sins.
He's keeping this from happening in your life.
Exactly.
So where do you think where does that perspective of God come from?
Punitive. There's I did this, so now I'm having to live out my sins by this being my punishment. I've overcome part of that.
Sure.
But it takes a lot, because sometimes there's little voices that get in your head and they start talking, and so that means that I'm not in the Bible enough if those voices start taking over, because I start hearing that failure part again and again.
Yeah.
Well, you can't even be a mother. You can't even produce your own child. Those types of things. And so, you have to really stay strong. I really, Bethany's 22 years old now, and I thought for the longest a lot of that stuff had gone away. But I do find now, when I'm sitting with people who have born their own children, that that's something I can't talk about.
Wow.
And so it still comes back as a hindrance.
Yeah, but so something you said a minute ago, so I'm just listening to you, because I think it's a very common language for a lot of believers, and I want to get to the source of this, because I think that's important for us, is that you said that, when something like that doesn't happen, you feel like God is punishing you and you have to pay for your sin.
Right.
Okay, so where in the world did we come up with the idea that we have to pay for our sin?
It's nothing scriptural about it.
But you know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
But
I know.
But I think there, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a period of time in our church, in a lot of our churches, that's what you heard. There was a theology that almost made you feel like you were going to be punished for your sins, and you will pay for what you've done wrong. In
the here and now.
In the here and now.
Right, in the here and now.
Yeah. And that is about as anti-gospel as you can get. Mm-hmm. There's nothing gospel about that.
But I think it's also, you talked about Eve being away from God, not wanting to be with God. And I think that also plays a role in that if you have sinned and you're not with godly people, some of those things become a works.
Oh, sure.
A works message.
Absolutely.
And so I've done this and I don't want to be with these people.
Yeah.
And then the work starts playing a game, and it takes you a while to come back around to what it's all about.
Yeah. But in a lot of our churches, though, if I can convince you, so this is just my theory, but in a lot of churches, we feel like if I can convince you that you will pay for your sin if you do things wrong in the here and now, you won't do things wrong in the here and now.
I wish that was true.
So now I've got a punitive view of obedience. Exactly. If I can scare you into obedience by telling you, if you're not obedient, you will pay for your sin, then hopefully maybe I can get you to not do bad things.
But now, see, Jeff, there's also that concept of sickness. oh, they're sick because of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same type of thing. They did this, so now they're sick.
Right.
I've heard that concept before, and
Yeah.
That's not what God's all about.
No, it is not. It is
so
not
far
what God is all about, and it's just amazing to me that we have. So we have people who love Jesus. Think about that. People who have accepted Christ and His forgiveness for their sin, yet feel like they pay for their sin in their lifetime.
Because we're human.
Now, no, that's just untruth.
It's untruth, but
I mean, that is just.
It's the world, though. Don't you think?
It is the world.
It's part of what you
Yes.
talked about of
Yes,
what we're being.
I think it's Satan. I think it's Satan. I mean, let's just get down to it.
I agree.
Because here's what Satan wants to do. Satan wants to be the anti-gospel message. So what is the anti-gospel message? The anti-gospel message is you pay for your sin. That's the anti-gospel message.
Well, and then if you're going through those failures time and time and time again, and some with a big price attached to them, you're
surely I've done something wrong.
Well, and the armor may not be as strong as what it needs to be.
Sure. Yeah.
It may not need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't want it to sound like I'm.
No. I understand what you're saying, but
yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm thinking back to when I was going through that.
Sure.
It was a diligent effort.
Right.
To have to listen to what God was saying during that time.
Yeah, but wouldn't it have been a lot better for you, though, if you had been under teaching and you were under gospel teaching where you knew that Jesus Christ paid for all of your sin? And
I knew that.
And but somewhere in your theology, there was the possibility that you would pay for your sin here on the earth.
I know.
You see what I'm saying?
I do. But there was never a doubt of Christ paying for my sin, but it's just what happens in those little niches where Satan does come in and can pull you totally away,
right?
Or you can choose to stay with God.
Well, he distorts the all to some.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to think, so what would it be like to walk through that part of your life knowing that, man, I've got a God who provided a son that paid for all of my sin. He loves me. He has a plan for my life. And there's nothing in my life that he would do that's punitive because he punished Jesus for me. So he will discipline us when we need it, but he will not punish me, and I will not have to pay for my sin. So if I'm walking, so you tell me, is this hard to do? Because I'm painting a picture as a male. I'm walking through this, have a failed pregnancy. How difficult is it for you to say, you know what, that just wasn't God's will, and I'm going to trust God that for whatever reason that child is in heaven with him, and his plan was not for that child to live on this earth, and I'm okay with that.
I would say that, and I can tell you that God spoke in very loud ways during that time, because I can tell you time and time again when the call came through that we weren't going to get this baby, or this wasn't going to work out, or that wasn't going to take place. Walk down the porch and there's a huge rainbow. Yeah. I can remember those years being full of literal reminders. And I took that at heart. I took that as a direct message. But I'm just saying that it is, there was that constant message of what could I have done differently, or did I do something?
Well, I think that's what Patty said. I think that's the
distortion.
Over time, the wearing down, us getting, we get weaker in those times. And I think it's very easy. Like I can imagine after, I'm just throwing out a number, 10 failed attempts, be it, pregnancy or adoption or whatever, somewhere you have to ask the question, what have I done?
Done, right.
You know what I mean? Like it just feels like that would be a natural response. And but then you got to be pulled back to the gospel and realize it's not about what I've done.
That's right.
It's about him and what he's done for me. And I know he has a plan for my life. And I would think a hard thing would be for a woman that wants to be a mom is to realize maybe that's not God's plan for your life.
I
mean, did you ever come to a point where you just kind of thought,
goodness, yes.
Maybe God just doesn't have that, in my life.
Well, we stopped with trying to get pregnant and went the road of adoption. And we were so disgusted with everything by that point that we decided that foster parenting would be the right thing. So we went through the foster parenting classes, and we're going to be very happy with just fostering kids. That was going to be fine. They'd come and they'd go. We could be be mom and dad to 101 of them, whatever God gave us.
Sure.
We got the call in October that there was a baby waiting on us. They called and told us about her, and that was like on a Wednesday night, and they said, I said, we'll come get her right now. They said, no, you won't. You have to wait 24 hours before you tell us what you want to do. And, of course, I was just thrilled beyond words, absolutely thrilled. And I started calling the next morning. I think it was like 4 o'clock, trying to get the DCS office to answer. Of course, there was no talking to me in decent terms at that point about having any sense. But believe it or not, it was someone there cleaning. He answered the phone, and I said, I am Melissa Ross. We've got a baby waiting on us. I said, I want you to go and put this note under such and such door. The Rosses want this baby. And he did that. There was a note under the DCS door saying she wants the baby. And so we got in the car, my mom and dad and Bill and I, and went to Cookeville and picked her up. That was the sweetest thing, to have that child laid in my arms.
Wow.
It was pouring down rain when we came back, and we lost her little booty that night. But by the time, because it was such a surprise to us, that by the time we got back, we had stuff delivered to the house from all the neighbors and things like that knew what we had been going through, and everything was delivered. There was no problem in having things. Got up the next morning, left to go to a funeral of Bill's family. Got down there. His dad decided he took more nitroglycerin because he thought he was having a heart attack at the graveside. Ended up over at the emergency room. Had nothing with us to keep Bethany that night. But, God provides.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So we ended up having to spend the night, our second night, with us. We didn't know what we were doing. We had no clue. We just thought we did.
Yeah.
But God took care of us. And
how old were you guys when y'all got Bethany?
Actually, I told Jeff earlier. I said we was talking about how old Sarah was when she had Isaac, and it was like, I said I was 37 years old when I had Bethany. I was old.
Yeah.
You
weren't 90.
I wasn't 90. No, I wasn't 90. But at the same time, of course, I didn't get married until I was in my late 20s. But at the same time, I had never really thought about that until I put the pen and pencil to it. I'm going, oh yeah, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But having Bethany and getting to love on her and hold her and going through the final adoption phase with her, it was just nothing but a God.
Yeah.
I mean, woven through it the entire time.
Yeah.
And God in life right there in front of us.
Well, and I think one of the things that I was just thinking about this as you were talking, Melissa, one of the things that I would want to make sure that our ladies heard yesterday was that Sarah's joy didn't come to her because she was a mother.
That's right.
Sarah's joy came to her because God was faithful.
And God was faithful.
You know what I mean? So I think I have to be careful, because I don't want, like, our ladies out there to think, oh, Sarah's joy came because she got a child. Yeah. Your joy is not in the child, right?
And that's what we have to remember.
Yes, her joy came because God was faithful. Because I think in 21 it says, and God did as He said, and God did as He said. It says that very, very explicitly, that, and I think it's written that way so that we know what Sarah saw was that God was faithful. And yes, the result of that was a child, and because that was a part of that promise. But our hope doesn't come in the promise. Our hope comes in the faithfulness of God and who He is.
Well, and to remember the child is a gift from God.
That's exactly right.
And I think that when I look at, it was easy in those first few years with Bethany to keep that whole concept in mind. Yeah. And then you enter the teen years, and you want to, that's challenging.
Because the promise becomes pain.
The promise becomes pain, exactly.
If that's where your hope is,
you've lost it.
Because let me tell you what's going to happen.
Oh my! And then we won't even talk about.
Right? Yeah.
We don't talk about 18, 19, and 20 because you just thought
adult children.
You don't even, because you thought you prayed.
Yeah.
You were praying enough as when you have the infant, but boy, when they become adults, it's like oh, my word.
So check this out. So all three of us have adult children. And so, man, what is it like when we put our hope in our kids
and, is a lost
and not
cause.
in Christ? And because the reality is that if it hasn't happened yet, they're going to disappoint you at some point. It's just, I mean, I don't want to, that sounds defeatist, and I don't want to sound defeatist. Man, praise God. I hope that as Cameron's listening to this and he's got 2 little boys, man, I hope Hannon and Hudson never disappoint you, right? More than likely, because of the world that we live in and the sin, it's probably somewhere down the road that's going to happen.
Well, did I disappoint my parents? Yes.
Sure.
I mean,
absolutely. I don't know that my mom would say I disappointed her, though.
Oh, well, we know you're the sunshine.
I'm the ray of I'm
the ray of sunshine
in her
yes,
life.
I think that was part of the sermon yesterday too. I think that was yes.
My mom has forgotten so many things. If that would be the case, let me say something that's really sweet that happened. Yesterday, one of our senior adults, younger senior adults, called and asked Julie. I won't say who it was because it's called and asked Julie for my mother's phone number.
Oh.
And he called my mom and just had a conversation with her and said, "Hey, I want you to know what your son said about you today." And I'm telling you, Mom called me, and I mean, it made her Mother's Day, didn't it? Oh, it was just, yeah. I mean, she was so happy. I mean, it was just awesome. You
didn't have to have a card, did you?
No.
You need to keep that person in mind for next year.
And I'm not a card guy, so that's not really good.
Did he tell your mom that you guys posted her picture yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
She
absolutely.
was cool with it.
Oh, Mom loved it.
Most moms will be like, no.
No, honey, listen. My mother I told Mom, I said, "Mom, I posted a picture of you when you had blonde, that blonde hair." She goes, "What are you saying?" I'm like,
nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing, Mom.
Is your hair still that color? You better believe
what kind of hair did you have?
My mom still thinks she looks like that. But that's, I'm telling you, like if my mom came down here, she'd be that 83-year-old woman with her gold bracelets on and her necklace and wandering around just as spunky as she was when I was young. But no, it just made, I mean, it was so awesome. It was so cool. Yeah. For a person to reach out and do that. Hey, let me ask y'all a question. So like, I'm not a card guy. Like, is it really that big a deal that you get a card on Mother's Day? Like is that, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, I could just tell you, or I could go spend $6 on a card and write something on the card, and I don't get it.
Well, see, Bill is always good about writing more on the card than what's on the card. My dad was always that way. He would spend, he would go through it. The cards from Dad always had words highlighted or circled and underlined 3 or 4 times, and he does the sideline. So by the time you got the card, it wasn't the original card.
Yeah.
It sort of just incentivized him to think bigger, But
that's
But I'm not a card person either.
I think they're nice. I appreciate the thought, but it's not expected.
Yeah.
Really, I mean,
maybe I need to do better.
Joey does a great job with it. I do not. I'll just own it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I might, do a verbal or a hug or something, and hey, happy anniversary. Yeah. Was that yesterday?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whoa, hey.
That's what I tell you. High five up here, Joey.
Yeah.
Nice.
I still think that the actions speak louder than the cards. That's
I agree.
the day-to-day stuff.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Well, thanks for sharing your story. I was telling Jeff before we started the podcast that
before I checked it out.
Before Jeff bailed on his job here as
tell her why though. I mean, because I told Patty this. I said, Melissa and I know each other, love each other, great friends, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to like me as a male asking you as a female, hey, let's talk about your baby issue. You know what I'm saying? Like I would be.
You can't even say it.
I can't even say it now. Like, I don't even know how to say what I'm. Just awkward. I'm like, I would turn into Chris Farley. I would be that guy. You remember when? And I just thought that was like it hit me, Patty. Like you need to host this because where how to ask the questions, and I can just kind of pop in. And so, out of respect for you and your privacy, I didn't want to, talk to you about that stuff.
Well, after you go through, anyone that's been through it, the privacy issue is no longer private. It's just not what it is. But you have to remember God is always there. Yeah. And I just have to, I think back to that when Patty called yesterday, I was like, and instantly your brain starts going back through what was going on during that time and everything. Yeah. And it's just, of course, you look back and see God's faithfulness in ways that
Yeah.
you don't even know about.
Well, and I hope that all of our moms understand, and maybe they've never asked the question or nobody's ever explained to them that, every miscarried child, you will meet that child.
And that's a very good message to give.
I mean, that's just a child you haven't got to meet yet,
Right.
that you will meet one day, I just can't imagine the feeling of getting to heaven and you kind of having an idea of who's going to be there, but then all of a sudden this one comes up and looks and says, "Mom, we've never met."
Well, see, I
just can't imagine that.
I've got an older brother that died 6 hours after he was born, and I sometimes think about meeting Larry.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's just going to be a really cool. I mean, I could have been a middle child. That just sort of freaks me out instead of being the old bossy one, the oldest one and the bossy one.
Bill's at home going, "Amen."
That's right.
Yeah. But there's hope. There's hope for mothers who've experienced that. But you got to realize our hope is not in this world. Our hope is not here. Our hope is later. Our hope is with Christ, and that's where all of those children who weren't born into this world but were created are with the Lord. And they're waiting to meet, they're waiting to get to meet those people who were their parents. And I just think that's a great message and a great sense of hope, because our hope isn't here. It's there. And so those are the times and those are the things that we're going to experience our greatest sense of hope. I mean, our hope will always be in Christ. And heaven is not, you guys have heard me talk about this before. It's not our heavenly retirement. It's not the end all be all. Obviously Jesus is, and being with God and the Father and all of that. But just knowing that relationally, man, families will get to be reunited that are there and are in Christ, and every one of those children are going to be there. And I just think that's an amazing picture.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, just an amazing picture of how much He loves us. And as much as we want to think about it, and as much as we want to, and there's no way I can understand what it's like for a mother to lose a baby, regardless of what stage it's in.
But it's still there. The husband goes through that too.
Sure, absolutely.
There is a loss there.
There is a loss there, but not like a mother. So it's not to minimize that, but to hopefully give hope to say that it's not lost, right? That child goes straight to be with the Lord. And to think of the pain and suffering that child did not have to experience. I say this every time a person passes that knows Jesus, is they were delivered. We didn't lose them.
No.
They got delivered.
They got
rescued. I mean, rescue me from this world, Lord. Dave Gordon got rescued from his pain and his suffering and all of that. Well, it's just easier to say that about a 77-year-old man and not about a child who has yet to be born.
Yesterday, Bethany wasn't able to be with us because she was working at the hospital. And I had sort of, I'd been, and she sent me a message yesterday afternoon. She says, no mother should be putting their baby in a body bag on Mother's Day.
Wow.
And it just sort of hit me across the face. Here I have been going, yeah. You can't be with me. I still have Bethany. But others are going through a whole different process.
Yeah.
And it sort of slapped me in the face that gratefulness and that I should be having, that different perspective was not there. And I was like, okay, God, I got your message.
Yeah.
Loud and clear,
Because it's hard to get them, and it's hard to let them go.
It's hard to let them go. And
yeah. It's hard to listen. You guys know this. When you have adult children, it's hard to let them be adults. That's one of the hardest things we have to do as parents of adult children is let them be adults and realize that we're confidants and counselors, and like our roles change, and sometimes we don't change when our roles change.
Somehow I forget that the God that was so faithful to bring her into my life is also standing beside her now as she goes through as she starts making her way into her life, and that He has the same ability to do what he needs to do with her without my help.
Yeah, really?
You know,
Seriously?
you know.
You mean, wait a minute. Are you telling me that Bethany can survive without you?
You know, and sometimes that has to be I have to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
Because I still want her to be
Yeah.
my Bethany. You know,
Sure.
She never was my Bethany, but still, it's hard to.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. And
God is big.
And I think even in that conversation, it's easier for dads to do that than it is for moms.
I agree with you on that.
You know what I mean? Because it's like us dads are like, yeah, we're supposed to raise them and launch them and let them do life and go do your deal.
Yeah,
and,
you and Bill would have
do
that
your life
conversation. Yes.
And I'm here for you. I want to support you, but you got to figure out life and you got to do life, right? And it's just moms are just have a different perspective, and I think that's okay because it brings some balance. You know, it brings some balance, and I think that balance is okay.
Absolutely. And intentional from our Creator.
Absolutely,
Right.
Without question. I love what you said, though, Melissa. She wasn't yours before you got her, and now that she's an adult, she's still not yours.
She's still not mine yet.
Yeah.
And daily reminders.
That's right.
We are all given, not all, but us have been given children to be stewards of. And we steward those children because they are His, not ours. We steward them, and we pour our lives into them, and we raise them, and we launch them out into the world to be image bearers for Christ. Now, they got to go do that. And we've got to trust that what we've done, and none of us would say that we did enough.
Exactly.
None of us would sit back and go, oh, yeah, I probably did more than enough.
No.
You know what I mean? I mean, we would all feel like we could have done more. I mean, there's not a Sunday that goes by that I don't think to myself, man, why didn't I know this? Why didn't I think about this? Why didn't I, when my kids were, younger, But then it's like God reminds me, but that's why I got you doing what you're doing, because you're supposed to tell those young families to do these things. I don't know that there were people, maybe there were people in my life, I don't know, but we have an opportunity, right? We have an opportunity to tell the next generation, to pass on what we've experienced to the next generation, to help them understand, hey, look, here's what balance looks like. Here's what making sure your hope is in the right place looks like. Here's what, and we still struggle with that, but yeah, we've got to pass that on to the next generation.
Absolutely.
But I think that comes also with age and wisdom.
I do.
Because I think about if someone, when people at 20 years old, they'd say, okay, time is going to go fast. It's going to go faster. And you go, oh, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Or they say, make sure you enjoy that time with Bethany when she's a baby.
Yeah.
Or with, enjoy that baby time. Oh, my goodness, changing diapers and screaming and yelling and hollering and all that kind of stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
You don't know to enjoy that. It's hard to enjoy that.
No, that's the tough times.
It's the tough times. But boy, my goodness.
I attended a baby shower last weekend, and as we entered the door, they had the little diapers
Yes.
that you're supposed to write a note of encouragement or wisdom on. And I'm like, I'm writing on a diaper. Okay, here we go. So I found myself, without really thinking about it, writing down, a clean house can wait. Cuddle time is where it's at.
That's good. Yep.
Because I'm honestly confessing right now, there were times where I would look around and, oh, my house is spotless.
Right.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I don't think I cuddled him or her as much as I should have today.
Right.
So I was graciously reminded by many wise women in my life to stop. Just stop and be in the moment with your kiddos.
In the moment.
In the moment.
And what's so funny about that is that, like, I'm watching Julie and me kind of flip roles in that, where she's now becoming the one who, like, it doesn't really matter, like, what the house looks like. I mean, she's always been very meticulous about keeping the house nice and neat. But with grandkids now, it's just flipped. It's like, yeah, it don't matter. Like, put the playpen right in the middle of that room. What about when people come over? Well, they just walk around it. You know what I mean? Like It just doesn't matter, because what matters is we're going to have the stuff that we need to keep our grandkids and take care of them. And
grandparenting is a whole different thing, isn't it?
Man, I'm telling. Well, it's
so
like Madison.
fun.
Madison Corey just bought a new house, and so happy for them. And I walk in the living room one day, and I'm like, "Where'd our couch and love seat go?" Oh, I gave it to Madison and them. Oh, well, that's awesome. What are we going to do? We're good. Okay. Let's move a chair in here. How about that? Get a chair out of the kitchen and put it in here.
And Julie was thinking, ultimately, this is my moment.
Oh, no doubt. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Listen,
Going shopping.
She is a very savvy lady, for sure.
There's wisdom there.
She knows there's going to be
There's going to be something else later on.
Coming.
That's right.
Yeah, but that's just the way. But that's just what you do. You know, your kids come in. My boys don't do it as much, but Matt's going to go, man, I love that chair. Like, oh, there goes the chair. Like Julie's like, okay, I'll have it over there tomorrow. Like, whoa, wait a minute, time out. Man. Yeah, all I need my boys to start coming in going, man, I love that shirt. Oh, okay, you can have it. What? Oh.
Well, maybe you'd have a new wardrobe in a year.
No.
You don't. No, not your thing. Not to go shop.
Yeah, now is probably a good time to end this podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right
before
Julie's
Jeff
mad
gives
at me.
away all his earthly possessions with full consent on live broadcast.
100%. It's all good stuff, right?
So, mamas, motherhood is obviously a journey of ups and downs, as is anything in life that's worth doing. But the rewards, right?
Oh, it's wonderful.
The rewards.
Yeah.
And I want to end with what you said, kind of tying together your message yesterday. And I think this is just amazing words of wisdom for any mom or dad. Don't place our joy in performance, but in the person of God.
Mm-hmm.
If we would just live that out.
Yeah, right. Man, that's all of us.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a great word.
Wow. So we're going
With
to end with
spouses
that.
and
I think the Holy Spirit forgive it to me. I wouldn't mind. That's why I can comment on my own stuff. Because I'm like, it's the Holy Spirit, so I'm good with saying that.
And thank you, Melissa, for
Thank
joining
you for
us
having
today.
me. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Melissa.
And we're
Thank you
just
for
so
coming out and
grateful
sharing
for your
today.
story. It's just beautiful how the Lord turned your doubts, your disbelief into a tangible reality of joy.
A very tangible reality.
So we're
With
just,
some very tangible points of pain along the way.
and we're just thankful that you're able to minister to other women who are walking or have walked where you've walked before. So we thank you for that, and thank you for your boldness and just sharing your story. We really appreciate it.
And Patty, thanks for hosting today.
Yes,
thanks,
you.
Jeff, for showing up.
Thanks for stepping in and hosting, Patty. Thanks for listening to the Holy Spirit and obeying what He wanted you to do today.
And thanks for
this afternoon.
telling me 10 minutes before it started. Hey, you're up.
Well,
That's amazing.
Well, that's when you have to rely on the Holy Spirit. And that's what I wanted for you today.
And once again, this
In your life today.
podcast is over.
We'll see you
See you
guys
next
next week.